monumental miscellanea, and funerary paraphernalia. It's Archaeodeath.
Archaeodeathlings, welcome to another Archaeodeath interview with an extra special guest. All the way from the United States of America, we have Rachael Keri Williams. But Rachael, please introduce yourself and just how did you get into doing what you do? Give us a little bit of an origin story, as they say in the movies.
Like the short origin story or the long origin story? So my dad's family, and my dad is from Baltimore, Maryland. He grew up there, and his mother was from Bangor, Maine. They're Black American. She started the continuing education department at Morgan State University, which is HBCU, and his dad started the psychology department at Morgan State University. And my dad is an abstract mathematician, retired from the University of Buffalo. So that's that background. And we used to go visit my grandparents, multiple times a year. And down in Baltimore, I'm from Buffalo, New York. And they always had tons of photos on the walls. Some of them were like from the 1800s, and they were, school teachers, Black school teachers with integrated classrooms. And I was, we didn't have integration in the United States at that time. Okay. So that was surprising to me, but they explained that schools were integrated and then they segregated and then they reintegrated, which is not usually history. But so there was a lot of history in that house. My grandmother died, and tragically, she went into a coma, and I went there, and someone had robbed her. So we went to the house in Baltimore, and my goal in going to the house was to get our family treasures. Right? I was 19, went with my dad, and I found them hidden behind a flap in the basement. So all these years I carried them from apartment to apartment, dorm to dorm, and didn't do much with them. And then I finally did back in 2017. That led me to realizing that there was more family history than I'd ever known. And the only place that I could go to find it was a cemetery. You can hear me okay, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I went to first I went to a cemetery, a Black cemetery that was founded by my fourth and third great grandparents. And in a they founded a free Black community around 1840 in South Central Pennsylvania in Adams County, 10 miles north of Gettysburg. And there was a cemetery, but everyone had taken the headstones and they were supposedly completely lost. So while there were bodies still there, the headstones were gone. We left there, my nephew and I, really dejected and depressed, and went to the next cemetery. I can remember in that car ride telling my nephew, I wish I was a leader and I could do something about this. It doesn't feel right.
When you say taken, may I interrupt and ask is this casual, is this theft of stones for, it's simultaneously disregard and active robbing for practical use, or is it a deliberate purging type thing? What is behind that kind of, erasure, that kind of, just removal?
Yeah. In this case, the kind of passed down local history is that the cemetery was accompanied by a church and a school for Black children. They were burned down. The Black people were run out. And then the headstones were taken to be used as a foundation for a new house.
Wow.
Yes. many years later, probably in the 1970s or 80s, that house had caught fire and it had to be demolished. And they demolished the whole house. And nobody knows what happened to the headstone. If they got crunched up and they're in the ground, or they went to the landfill, or anything like that. But this is very common in the United States. That often, right, headstones are used from Black cemeteries to build fortifications or become, parts of white people's houses in one way or another. So that's what happened on Yellow Hill. And it was enough of a memory for people. There was one, a white man, I think he was a Vietnam War veteran. No, he was a veteran of World War II. There was one headstone that was left that was of a Black Civil War soldier, and he went for 54 years. Every Memorial Veterans Day and put a flag. And so he kind of kept that memory alive. Next we went to Lincoln Cemetery in Harrisburg, where kind of another part of my family was buried, although there's crossover, looking for my second great-grandparents who were born enslaved. And I wanted to see if I could find their headstones, if there was any information about where they came from or other people related to them nearby. And instead of finding their headstones, we found holes and human bones on the ground and coffin handles and such.
Completely ransacked by just burrowing animals or local people?
Burrowing animals in this case, but yeah, as things progressed, it was like, and it hit the news cycle what we had found there. Then we got contacted by people who make human bone jewelry and such.
Right.
Yeah. Not Black people.
No.
Not descendants, right? Yeah.
It's almost like cemeteries feel they're like, from so many different angles, people almost like circling like vultures to. Sorry, it's just very evocative, but perhaps I don't want to be too inflammatory, but it just feels very. They are like. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, when I looked, because I was kind of shocked because we were having, cleanups, we called them at that point, to try to, neaten things up. And there was like a group of 9 people that were going to come for one of these cleanups. And, they identify as otherkin. They have, really unusual profile photos and such. And the main woman who reached out to me is, she would identify as being, I can't even, because she's a white woman who identifies as a Black pagan god.
I feel a headache coming on already in this conversation. No, I'm I'd be no good as a journalist. I'll go, that's an interesting take, but I was just like, okay, oh, right, yeah. I've met people like this actually, both Americans in the UK and British people who claim various African, Caribbean, or Black American, identities, and it's interesting.
And then it's making and selling human bone jewelry online.
I hadn't realized this was why you were so passionately against the trade in antiquities, because we've discussed it as a more abstracted issue, and I've seen your videos, but I hadn't realized. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, and I knew because I used to be like a reseller from estate sales, like collectibles and such. So I knew about this market already.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden it became, and people acted like I was nuts. Yeah. What do you mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
It sounds made up, though, doesn't it? That's the point. It sounds. I mean, I'm not questioning you. I'm just saying it sounds like you can't make it up. You just like
You can't. I mean,
it's so upsetting. Yeah.
so that's where that's how we got started, and then I incorporated a nonprofit, and things kind of just started with social media, and I never did any of this stuff before that. Like, I wasn't even a big social media person,
No.
So yeah, and then we because I live 300 miles away from where the cemetery is. I started making, it's like, okay, how do we have university partnerships? How do we maximize having no money, not being there, and still, and the fact that people locally, even though the cemetery, dates back to the 1700s, people locally don't know that that their ancestors are buried there, which is, I was more aware of that as being someone distant than people are. Yeah.
So it's almost like you again, naively, I'm not saying one would think there's this kind of local investment, but these spaces are at best ignored or actively, there's a lot of dislocation, isn't there, within American society? A lot of denial, a lot of just it's better if it just doesn't get discussed. I imagine. I don't know. It's really sinister.
Well, we have Lincoln Cemetery is a really popular name in Pennsylvania for Black cemeteries. There's a bunch of them. And one of the closest Lincoln cemeteries, it's in the next county, actually, was, I think it was even in the late 80s, they decided this isn't a great place for a cemetery and it'd be a better place for a park. So let's move all the headstones and make a park. And that's Carlisle's Lincoln Cemetery. I was like, at the rate that we're going with Harrisburg's Lincoln Cemetery, that's going to happen here.
Yeah.
Because it just, once the memory is gone, and then here you have this prime real estate.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's how we started doing the cleanups, and then we lucked out because someone had seen a post I did, posts on Facebook, and he's one of the top, historical monument restorers in the country. And so he shows up in March 2022 and starts teaching us how to restore headstones.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So, yeah,
so builds momentum. You get the knowledge and the connections, and has there been? May I ask? Is this very much an isolated endeavour, or are there a broader network of Black cemetery? I don't know what you call yourself: guardians, researchers, enthusiasts, activists. Well, I don't know what term is best, but is there a?
Yeah, the commonly used term is stewards or stewardship.
I like that.
Yeah, and there are when I started in 2021, there wasn't a lot out there. Now it's like a boom. So Pennsylvania itself has an organization called PA Hallowed Grounds, and they started identifying and trying to reach out and different Black cemetery stewards. I think they've identified now over 200 Black cemeteries in the state alone.
Okay.
So there's no list anywhere. There's no master list of Black cemeteries, right? And then there's the group, the Black Cemetery Network, which started in Florida but is nationwide. And they actually just had their first Black Cemetery conference last week, which I found out about 2 days before it happened. So it's like, darn it. Yeah.
So tell me a little bit more, if you would, about the cemetery space as you encountered it and what has happened to it, because I know that setting aside for the moment that you've just had some news about maintenance, but in terms of the overall story, have you found many new gravestones? Have you been simply restoring those of already visible? Is there other features? Is it really a sparse landscape?
It is less sparse, certainly. I think when we started, maybe there were a couple hundred visible stones and very few legible out of those stones. They're all legible now, or mostly all legible. There was a lot of, there's curbed graves, enclosed family plots that are much more visible now as well. We've recovered, over 1,000 headstones at this point, and some of them restored, repaired, others not. We find them sometimes just below the surface or 4.5 feet below ground.
4.5 feet? That's a deliberate burial, right? That's someone's deliberately...
Sometimes yes, and sometimes no. So we found a large, probably 350-pound headstone and its base, and that one was 4.5 feet below ground.
Right.
So, it sounds weird, but it had just fallen in place. Right. And then, I would guess over many decades.
There's worm action, doesn't it, affects this? I know that there's a whole discussion of how worms, can bury things, and root action can affect, but that's a substantial depth, yeah.
And in this case, there were some roots, there were many trees that were on the property, and then they died, or people started cutting them down. That's had a profound, effect on how the landscape is. The monument specialist said, and I would concur with this, he said that we have on average 8 inches of ground shift a year.
Wow.
So, just constantly every year, and spring, I'm like, that's and I call it ancestor harvesting time, because which the kids don't like. They're like, Mom, you shouldn't say that, but because it sounds gross, like you're eating them or something. But that's when the stones come up.
Yeah, I think I could guess that's where you would go with that. Yes, and this is true of that metaphor of growing, of harvest, is one that metal detectorists long use, archaeologists long use to talk about the soil has a bounty, a crop that and it's I think it's a very evocative and not insensitive one, actually, because it does sort of give that sense of you're exploring this area and you're connected to it, and what decides to be exposed and revealed to you is quite profound. So you're working. Are you working to a specific goal with this cemetery, or is it like kind of a rearguard action of trying to stop it disappearing completely? What is the sort of is it even possible to take pause and create a strategy, given how much work there is to do just to keep it going, so to speak?
Yeah, the idea kind of has developed over time. When I started, people told me that, they were Black people, so they didn't have headstones.
Oh.
You're not going to find the headstones. And, or they were stolen, the ones that were there, right? They told me things. And, for the most part, of course I can't know what was stolen or not stolen, but most of what we found in place, right? Or shifted slightly, like you said. We have found headstones where they are deliberately placed and used as bricks beneath other stones. Which, why did this ever happen? Who puts a marble headstone underneath another marble headstone? It's bizarre. It's illogical. But the goal, like I call it radical history reclamation. It's, because of so many of the people, their names, the entire neighborhoods and communities that they lived in have been demolished.
Yes.
They don't exist anymore. Their names are not written in records for the most part. Or you need to know what they are before you can find them in a record.
Yeah.
What better place than the cemetery? So for me, it's like getting all of those names and restoring that fabric of the community. Also just understanding, like when I first found that people were clearly buried with seashells, right?
Yes. Yeah.
That was like, because the myth growing up and what you're taught in schools is that like slavery erased all practices.
Yeah.
All tradition, all cultural, everything for Black people. And then here's this clear evidence that it did not.
No. I've read some academic literature on this in terms of the archaeology and trying to avoid narratives of antebellum slavery, but then also subsequent legacies that do not victimize, but equally don't flip the other way and don't just see it all about agency of resistance. It's both and neither, and it's about trying to understand and this narrative that the oppression was so severe no one remembered anything. Well, yes, people are robbed and ripped from their homes and their traditions, but they don't forget. They don't, you can't. I mean, that's one of the most, I suppose, it's difficult to find a positive out of these things, but at least it shows us that it's a good example of many examples where, no matter how much people try, they can't eradicate. There's always traces and stories, and the fact you're actually digging those up, it must be so touching to see that connection. Yeah,
I mean, really, I think I just started crying the first time. Like I was like, because I had read, in journals and stuff about people specifically like in the Sea Islands and along the coast in the South, but not anything about like central Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Right. And then I'm like, and these people are, born in Pennsylvania, died in Pennsylvania in the 1800s, and they had these practices. And they are seashells. They're not river cells, which were by a river.
Yeah.
So that just, it still gives me goosebumps. I'm like,
you're several hundred miles from the Atlantic, aren't you? You're, I don't know exact distances involved, but you're not exactly a short hop from the, that's really amazing. And do you find, do you have do you have the facility to create a store of these items, or are they just recorded in a more casual way because you're doing you've got so much to do? How are you going about that?
I mostly just take pictures and then try, like with university partners and such, have tried like right now Messiah University, their digital humanities program, we partnered with them about maybe almost 4 years now, and Harrisburg University, and did drone flights and multispectral drone flight imaging and LiDAR imaging and stuff like that. But they are creating, now we're at the point where it's like, okay, they've been doing all these drone flights. We have maps of the cemetery, like that are family plots that are overlaid in some views, GIS. I'm getting super geeky here, but I like it,
Yeah.
And then burial records, cards, and they're odd because, and most of them were created after 1940. These records, because all the records were burned 3 times. with arson. So then they were recreated, and sometimes they have little handwritten maps, like, here's someone's buried in this spot, and then they'll have little boxes and have like a name each in the other boxes on the side.
Right.
So lay and overlay and bring information from all of these different sources and figure out what's going on.
Yeah, I was going to ask, obviously there's the retrieval of gravestones and the restoration. Are there any other features in the cemetery, or is it a very sparse landscape beyond the individual graves? Are there walls? Are there any vegetation that's distinctive and deliberate, or is it more just overgrown, casual, grass and shrub? What does the space have? Is it a collection of graves, or are there other features?
There are, like, there's one walled, raised, curbed family plot.
Okay.
And then there are lots of other either curbed individual graves, like cradle graves, and some other plots, but that don't have, the walls have either sunk, so they're kind of like ground level, or just a little bit above, or a couple feet down. So that is like, that is a clear feature, but it's not always visible now.
Okay.
And then those were planted, and you have some evidence of the original plantings that were in them. People used to come and plant those and care for those curved plots, but they would have flowers and rose bushes and yucca, in them. The trees, as I mentioned, there were over 80 trees in the past, and now I think there's 8.
Right.
7. Yeah. So we'd like to plant new trees, but that, it's always, there's a lot to do all the time. Yeah.
Do you have a? It must be difficult to work out priorities, but do you have some kind of like plan of what you're going to do, or are you just trying to do it bit by bit as emergencies, are thrust upon you, of different kinds?
Yeah. In terms of the grounds, we've targeted. My goal is to find people, right, and to find those, and because number one, because of the invisibility, and because descendants don't know that people are buried there. So that was always really important, but also repairing stones that are really damaged or could be more damaged is that's a top priority. And then sometimes I'm like, let's do flowers, and then I'll plant a bunch of wildflowers or something. The rest of it is as we can make partnerships with other groups of people, or a contained group where you can have somebody who's we want to do a tree replanting project, then great. Then we have a tree replanting project, and we don't have to be solely the people that are trying to do that, labor on our own. So that's the way I've worked it. Yeah.
That sounds very democratic, and it gives people the ability to recognize the space and its evolution and its different uses and significances, and it's not a narrow, So I suppose the blessing of having little funding is there's not a narrow. We are going to achieve this in this, rapid succession, which is often very contrived, isn't it? This has more integrity. It's more paced. I get a sense.
I see with the cemetery, there have been past efforts to, restore the cemetery, usually after an act of vandalism or something.
Yes.
Right. And then it's very targeted, pick up these headstones, read headstones. Whereas I came into it I have no idea what's here.
Yeah.
But what can we do?
No, exactly.
So yeah.
And in your region, and particularly with the Black community, it's all inhumation. There's no minority tradition of cremation or other disposal methods.
Yes, cremation.
You get cremation, okay.
It's rarer. It's more common now, but yeah. But like my grandfather was cremated and his sister, and then buried in the cemetery.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
But that's space mostly, I think. A space, because there weren't plots left to purchase anymore.
Yeah.
So they, cremated and buried where their parents are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when was it exactly abandoned then, Rachel? Was it sort of 1960s, or did you say? Or?
So they eliminated the on-site live-in caretaker.
Yeah.
In the 1940 or 1938.
Okay.
Yeah. So
it's older than I thought. Yeah.
Yeah. Essentially, that's the period of when things get weird, and in different ways. There was certainly a strong effort at that point because the caretaker's house was burned down.
Yeah, you said that. Yeah.
So then they had to recreate records. Yeah.
And in terms of how it appears, does it look typical, or is it exceptional compared with other black cemeteries, or they all have the same challenges, or are some threatened more than others? So a lot of questions there, but I just
Yeah. So it differs in one sense because there's more grander monuments than what you would typically see.
Okay.
Yeah. And then there's there's a lot of variety. So we have markers that are homemade out of concrete.
Really? Oh, right.
We have two, marble and granite carved professionally. And then, we also have homemade, there's one marker that is, I don't know what where the piece of marble originally came from, but it's kind of very thin and, curvy. And then it's kids' handwriting, carved in a knife, our mother.
Oh, wow.
And the date of her death.
That is very powerful, isn't it? But also perhaps a little too sentimental. It depends on your style and approach, I suppose. But it certainly speaks to the significance of the relationships in being memorialized. That's really.
And the kids carved it. The mother died very young. Her children were very young. They were all under 10. So it's they, when I started seeing those, it completely contradicted this notion that people were constantly saying, we don't have headstones in our cemetery because black people afford them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So
there's a lot again. That's as with the shells, that's a sign of adaptation and resilience. That you despite the circumstances you living in, you always find time for the dead. You always find time to honor, at least even if it's you're not particularly wealthy, you can still follow the basic. I don't know. That seems to me important.
Enslaved people put grave markers, right?
Yes.
If it was a field stone and there was no writing on it, if it was a plant, that's still a grave marker.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
what's next for you then, Rachel, with this? Is it more of the same, or have you got other plans to take this further?
One of my because I do genealogical research on everybody and the connections, and I still live in Buffalo, New York, so I still have a 300-mile drive, right?
My word, yes. Yeah.
I don't know what that is in kilometers because I'm not that fast with that, but I don't know why I can't exchange the two things, but I kind of know the distances in both, but I can't do the exchange. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Right. But
our brains will work differently.
To me, cemeteries are it's a bigger problem and it's a bigger gift. So what I've found is talking about cemeteries, people are like, oh, whatever, it's a cemetery. They don't understand that it's, it's an archive that there's all of these. It's a multi-dimensional archive, right? Of life, not just, oh, there's just some old dead people that are there. So it's, and that for Black people in the United States, let me say this the other way. Cemeteries are also usually, unless it's like a national or government cemetery, they're considered local history.
Yes.
It's a local story. But for Black, because we have forced migrations, we have right? You're moving from place to place. So the cemetery is cultural heritage for people all over the world.
Yes.
Yes. Right. So we have, actually even before coming to the cemetery, but the cemetery helped shape it, I was, with partners developing a software platform that would help show and allow people to contribute heritage and connect migration lines, personal histories, microhistories, and beyond kin social networks historically. And so we're still doing that. And that is, that's grown a lot more recently. We're also, cultural heritage, Black cultural heritage is extremely threatened in the United States right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And we just got our National Historic Register nomination submitted to the National Park Service.
It's slow, determined, incremental work, isn't it, Rachel, to keep this on people's minds, to lobby, to ensure that this heritage is not, because everyone's happy to do a 10-second outrage online about these issues, but it's that, I'm not dismissing that, it's important that people care, but equally it needs that long haul. It needs people there, who are going to be reliably there next year, not next day, who will actually step up and talk about these issues, I guess, and support it practically or in other ways. But it's for the long term.
Yeah, I mean, it has to be generational, and and recognizing really what is the value of a cemetery. Like, there's so much about that now too culturally, where people are like, oh, cemetery. They take up land. They're horrible. It's, I'm going to be cremated. We shouldn't have cemeteries anyway, and our cemetery is a natural space in an urban landscape.
Yeah, they're important for well-being and exercise and education and nature conservation, but also the dead, and their monuments.
Yeah. So all of those things, all the things is next. I'm always doing all the things. Yeah. So
do you have any sort of final thoughts for viewers and listeners about your work and what your hopes are for the future of this heritage of black cemeteries? Difficult one, I know.
I mean, I think that letting people know that there are ways, it's important to know that it's a community responsibility and a gift to the community, and that community is international, and so people should find ways to get involved and to support, whether it's through transcription of handwritten archives, or doing research, or just giving us money.
And we'll put links in the description for the project and any donations, of course. I think this is such important work, not only for what you're doing, but also the example you're set for, to inspire hopefully other cemeteries and their communities to get involved. Or if not, as you say, their communities, then people who are interested in restoring these stories, so they're not lost. Yeah.
And that's, I mean, it's like, how do you, telling the stories, which is, I love I love finding the headstones, but I also love doing the research.
Yeah.
So, and then I just wish more people would be like, oh, here's a photo of this person. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Because hopefully you can crowdsource some further information by sharing online, because you're so active online, and that seems to be part of the mix. You can't do these projects now, and you wouldn't want to do these projects necessarily without that social media dynamic. Is that fair to say?
Oh, yeah, definitely. For me, you know, and I wish I could, if I had the time to tell stories in more ways, whether it's like the blog, I haven't even updated it, I don't think, in a year and a half.
Right.
And that's right. But yeah, I love telling the stories. I love doing it with social media. I think that getting people involved and caring requires that now, especially when we're so spread out. Yeah. So.
Well, Rachel, it's been an education and a privilege to hear you talk about your project, and I know we haven't really even scratched the surface of the many other ways it connects to other work you're doing with archives and recording, but I hope this serves as an introduction to you, the places that you rightly care about so much, and we should all care about, and the communities that you're serving, living and dead, and well, both, you know. But you know what I mean, in terms of, you know, honouring ancestors as well as trying to uplift and, you know, engage, you know, communities in that story. So I just want to say it's been an absolute privilege. I hope you know, we'll put the links in the bio so people can find you, in the description. Sorry. We say bio because that's what everyone says on TikTok, but links in the description so that people can find you and learn more about this important work. But just any final thoughts, or is that a good place to stop?
That's a good place. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right. I'll see you on TikTok.
Absolutely.
For relaxing times, make it Archaeodeath time.